My name is Jane Wilson, and for the past, I think 13 years now, I've taught over 10,000 people to feel strong, sexy, and confident through pole dancing. I once owned a studio called Pole Fit Nation, and in 2019, I had to make the difficult decision to sell the studio, and I made a little pivot and recognized that I have witnessed so many transformations. And I ended up writing a book about it called The Up to No Good Club, Defining Your Life with Strength and Swagger. And it's all the stories of people who've reinvented themselves, who pivoted, who just in the beginning sucked in the beginning, but then through time and repetition, their confidence grew.
Yes, that's amazing.
Thanks.
Have many of like have there been a lot of people who've decided to become teachers at like going from that whole transition to being like, I want to empower people with the same experience?
Absolutely, absolutely. Now, one thing to know is that not everybody could be would make a good teacher. Like you would
Right.
have the greatest pole performers who
Mhm.
are exceptional up on the stage, but they were not the best at teaching. Same
Yes.
thing for being an instructor. You're a great instructor, but you're not the greatest studio owner. So definitely, if you are looking to become an instructor, is make sure that you have the ability to understand what it's like to learn, and you have to be able to break it down to every type of learner. So some people learn well through sight, auditory, through different ways. So you have to be able to break it
Mm.
down, just as you know, as a Pilates instructor, like you have to be able to break it down to that person for
Yes,
sure. Mm-hmm.
absolutely. I think that's why like I love having people from different niches and areas of passion on the show because you can hear it through what you're doing, right? So I'm going to talk to you about pole fitness and studio ownership and empowering people and stuff, but the Pilates people in the space understand exactly what that means and how they can translate that to their space and their world,
Exactly.
right? It's the exact same thing.
Exactly. It,
They're all
the
translatable skills.
absolutely, absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, someone's
So
at
yeah,
your door.
yeah. We have this. I my studio is within a therapy clinic, so the door
Okay.
is locked. Obviously, with all of our COVID, stipulations and stuff in Ontario, it's tons of fun. So our door is locked, so we can't have people just strolling in. So a doorbell may ring from time to time in the
Absolutely. Oh
background.
yeah, and
Yes.
that's what, and you know what, and that's what many of us have had to do with this pandemic is to make those pivots and changes and to be at peace with letting go of what was once the normal.
Yes.
It's just let's see what's happening, let's see what's out there, and let's just go with the flow and how painful it has been. But
Oh, yes. So, okay, so talk about your journey in the same way I say to someone, how did you find Pilates? How did you find pole dancing? And how did you go from, hey, this is fun to I'm going to own a space to like that whole journey? How did
that
that
whole
start for
journey.
you?
Well, I'm actually an early childhood educator.
Okay.
So my background is ECE, and I had expected to be an early childhood educator all the way through. I worked for the region of Halton and Sheridan College. So in the ECE world, those are pretty the highest places to be, and
Yes.
you are set. You are set if you are with the region of Halton and Sheridan College.
Yes.
Your pension is awesome. And this was my life. This was my path. And around when Brendan was a baby, I wasn't feeling very happy with my life. I wasn't feeling very confident. And I actually have an anxiety disorder. It was not diagnosed at the time, but looking back, I'm like, holy cow,
You
was it
piece it
ever?
together.
Oh, yeah, was
You
it ever
and
screaming? Oh,
yes.
yes. So I was on a leave of absence and feeling very bored, uncomfortable, and unhappy. And I was telling my friend about how I was feeling, how I wanted to do something that was non mom like. So I'm thinking jazzercise. I'm thinking, let's go start a book
Zumba.
club,
Yeah.
Zumba, right?
Right.
And she responded to me with, why don't we take a pole dancing lesson? And I'm like totally not what I had thought. And I'm going to be totally honest up front. I was one of those people who were very judgy about
Mm.
this sport, art form, everything. Like I was very judgy, and I owned that. And so I went and I took my very first lesson. I walked in with my oversized sweatshirt, my oversized track pants, my big, huge, fitness shoes, and just kind of walked in and side-eyeing everybody and side-eyeing the instructor, like, who do you think you are? And by the end of the class, I was like, take my money. This is amazing.
Yes.
It's like, take all my money. And I just started to take class after class and started to understand more about the pole world and understanding about how we stereotype, we judge. So
Yep.
there was a lot of changes in my mindset, and I started to have biceps that I never had before, found curves I hadn't seen for years. And when my leave of absence came to an end, my husband said to me, you love this so much, why don't we open up our own studio? And that's how the studio in Oakville was born in 2008.
Wow.
And it was crazy. So I never looked back.
Before you decided to open it, did you take like certification courses to become a teacher? Were you teaching classes where you were taking classes and all that stuff too?
So I'm part of the original kind of group that came in where there wasn't a lot of certification.
Right.
So I started like 2007, and I started with a franchise called Aradia Fitness, they had their own training. So I came in through them. I bought a franchise for Oakville, stayed with them for a number of years. Yeah. And then busted out and opened Pole Fit Nation. So, yeah. And then but I did a lot of on the train, like learning as I'm going, meeting other amazing performers throughout the United States, getting as much information and growing and adapting and changing. So
did you compete? Like, were you getting into the competitions and all that stuff too? Or was it more just on the special interest side? Yep. Okay.
I did I did all the comps. Well, not all the comps. I did a lot of the major comps. 2013 to 2018 was my competition period. I did several throughout Canada and North America. I won my division twice, which is the Masters division. Thank you. Masters division is over 40. So
Nice.
it's like Masters division. Wow. No, that's the over 40 crowd. I won most entertaining and just really enjoyed it. And then when I decided it was time to hang up the competition outfit, and I had done what I wanted with that. So
yes. So then your husband's like, let's do this. You should open something up. Let's do it. Or you're like,
let's do it.
So
my husband's entrepreneurial. I wasn't entrepreneurial. I was safe. You have a pension, you have your salary, you never have to worry. You just show up and clock in and clock out. That's where I came from, where my husband is very entrepreneurial. So he's like, here's an opportunity where you can help people change lives and make a difference. And entrepreneurialism is solving a problem.
Yes.
Right. So I'm like, so I made the leap, threw up the whole entire time. Anxiety disorder was crazy. It was even worse. And however,
real talk, everybody.
Oh yes, it's not. I mean, but this is also during a period of entrepreneurialism where it was like, for me, the heyday of entrepreneurialism.
Yes.
Now it's a little bit different, and I learned so much. Entrepreneurialism is like personal development all in one.
Yes, no doubt. I love it. I'm that, as you know, that entrepreneurial type. So I get it, like that jump out of a plane and make your parachute on the way down type of lifestyle. I get it. But when you're on the other side, I have friends who just like work in a job, show up, get their paycheck, go home, and don't think about anything else.
And there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with that.
No,
absolutely,
not at all.
Yeah. And in fact, right now in our lives, my husband, what is the entrepreneurial mind, is now an employee with CFIB. And so, and he's like, he goes, right now, he goes, this works for me. I'm happy with this. And because he's had quite the entrepreneurial journey. So it's whatever floats your boat, whatever works for you in your life.
For sure. And I'm sure for him, like the wheels are always turning. Like if you have it in you, you could be working in that 9 to 5 and you're still scanning for like the next opportunity to solve a problem, right?
Exactly. Well, and for him, he's in sales. So that still taps into the entrepreneurial. Yes.
Yes. You still get to hunt.
Absolutely.
Yes. Nice. So highlights are captured in your book. What would you say are some of the like real talk low points of owning a bricks and mortar space?
Oh gosh. Well, it's all the low point, to be totally honest with you. Okay. So there's two ways of looking at this.
Yes.
It's up to me in order for this to survive. It's up to
Yes.
me in order for it to do well. So there's two ways you can look at that. You could be like, oh my God, it's up to me.
Hmm.
Or it's up to me. So it's different ways of looking at it. I've lived in the holy shit, this is up to me. Um, and that's tough. Um,
Yes.
I've also been with, wait a minute, this is up to me. So I have the power and the responsibility and I can get it done.
Mm.
So there's two ways of looking at it.
Yep.
I would say, to be totally honest with you, the lowest point um, of it is I made real talk. Like we talk about entrepreneurship, but not every person should be a business owner. So they're actually two different things. So business
Hmm.
owner is also making sure that you get your taxes done, your accounting, your bookkeeping, all that, not sexy stuff.
Yes.
And I would say that I once created a huge hole by not keeping my bookkeeping up to date. And
Ah,
I'm not saying like missing a month, missing a long time. So,
yes.
because you put your head in the sand, and you're like, oh my God, if
Yep.
it doesn't exist, I don't have to look at it. Oh
Right.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Keep
Yeah.
your books up to date.
Yeah. There's your public service announcement for today. Yeah, no, that's exactly it, right? And I think that I always want to give some airtime to that stuff too, because, like even like having a book, like your deadlines, and then like all these things, it looks sexy to say I have a book, but when it's like 11:55 and you got to get something into an editor and you have
Sorry.
5 minutes and you have three more edits to do, and you're hating your life for that minute, you know what I'm saying? Like that's real too.
So when I started this book began, the process started 2017. And a friend of mine said, you're going to go through 7 rounds of edits. 7 rounds. And I was like, not me. I don't need to go through 7 rounds. No way am I going to go. I went through 7 rounds.
Exactly. Yes. Yes.
Yeah. It's quite a process, writing a book, also putting yourself into this book.
Hmm.
I find this to be more vulnerable than owning a studio.
Really?
I felt more vulnerable with the book than I did owning a studio. So,
Why? I
because
can guess why, but like, why would you say that?
because with a book, you're putting in your personal stories.
Yeah.
It's like your heart and soul is in these pages.
Hmm.
And when like the weekend I had done my first book signing, my first in-person book signing, and I was celebrating every single time someone bought a book. I'm like, "Oh my God, you bought my book." And I was driving home thinking, "Wow, I really celebrated each book sale." Whereas before, like I'd celebrate when someone signed up, but there was more emotionally involved. And it's
Yes.
because this has my stories of overcoming an anxiety disorder. It has the stories of so many women who didn't feel sexy in their life and
Hmm.
reinvented. It talks about why it's okay to feel sexy in your life. So there's more vulnerability in a book than owning a brick and
Yes.
mortar studio, in my opinion, for me.
Yeah,
So,
yeah, exactly. No, I hear you on that. And it's
mhm.
such an interesting and inspiring path too, right? Like, I mean, like leaving the comforts, starting your own bricks and mortar, going through the challenges of, with all the challenges with that, and now writing a book. Like we've shared stages, like doing some
Yes.
public speaking as well. Like all of these things, people who are watching this are at different stages in their fitness or whatever their career path is, and they're
Hmm.
thinking about making that next step, right? So
Absolutely.
yeah, so it's just inspiring to hear your journey through that.
Thank you. Thanks. Thanks.
Mm-hmm. And I
Well, I
see some people
recognize.
there
Oh,
too. I
hello.
see
Look,
Quasi, and
is
yeah,
Creasy here?
yeah, Quasi's there.
Creasy Millington?
That's Quasi Millington.
He gave me my very first start on speaking on stage.
Really?
Yes,
His
he
story
was.
share, that was your first one?
That was my first one. That was my
Wow.
first one. Absolutely. Is when I was getting started. It was
Yes.
the beginning part. Actually, what kind of started the lead to writing my own book is
Hmm.
because being up on the stage and sharing the stories. And I'm like, I have a lot of stories to share.
Yes, you do.
And that was part of my journey. So hello. Thank you so much
There
for
you
joining.
go.
Yes,
That's legacy right there.
absolutely.
I think she
Absolutely.
rocked it too.
Thanks.
Absolutely. I didn't know it was your first time. That was so
That was my
cool.
first time. That was the very beginning.
Yeah.
I had just come up, both of my parents had passed away. And I had come out of a major depression and really going through a lot of grief and started climbing out of it. And one of the ways I started climbing out of it is starting to talk and share my struggles, share my path.
Mm,
And the more you share, people connect, and they also recognize that we're all going through something. We are
yes.
all going through something in our life.
Absolutely.
Hmm.
That's so true. And when I spoke at that one too, I think it's interesting. It's almost like the stories continue because I was talking about some of the challenges I was facing going through my divorce and kind of trying to find my footing. And I had met this girl, and I think even at that time, I was even wrapping my head around calling her my girlfriend. Like, what do you call your girlfriend when you're in your 40s? Is that like your partner? Is that your like what's the proper term for that? I remember saying
Yep.
that from the stage. So the story continues, but the wounds and the pain that we feel at different points in our life, it's like some of the sting is taken away when we share the story and we
Yeah.
empower other people with our story.
Absolutely. 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 And was that girl, was she the one that created the sign up here?
Perhaps might be the same girl. The same girl who walked into your studio when she was a mom of young kids and trying
Yeah,
to find her self as well. And she talks about how
absolutely.
much it empowered her. I mean, you can share her story probably better than I can because you knew her. I didn't even know her at that time.
Well, and I think because she had just moved into Alex, we're speaking about Alex,
Yes.
had just moved into Oakville and was trying to connect and meet people because she was new in town. And there's something that happens to a lot of women is that when you're constantly having to redefine yourself, a lot of times you'll get lost in the mother side and
Mm-hmm.
forget that you're also a woman and you're also an adult. And so you're needing that connection with other women and connection with other adults. So she had come to the studio to start to take lessons and met some wonderful people and created wonderful connections. That's really
Yes.
what the studio was all about right from the beginning, was
Mm.
community, creating connections, and for people to meet other people.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
That's amazing. And because I know she had like taught like spin classes in the past, she had taught Zoom class, she did things, but she just really latched onto this.
Well, she's a great instructor. She's incredible in front of people. She's an incredible person, period.
Yes.
But in front of people, she inspires many. She's just wonderful, wonderful lady. So yes,
Yes. I feel like I scored pretty good there.
yes, you did.
I think I did. And I've been talking a lot about our how, and I'm going to be talking at Brink, but I've really been trying to wrap my head around this concept of we talk about knowing your why. We've heard that
Yeah.
as business 101, know your why, right? And we've
Mm-hmm.
touched on that in terms of building community, all those different things. But now the piece that I'm spending a lot of time on is how. And for you, pull has been an amazing way of connecting people and empowering all those different things. For me,
Mm-hmm.
that how would be Pilates. For someone else,
Absolutely.
it may be, Quasi's doing a lot of speaking right now. Like there's all these different hows, and it's just to really build our confidence in the thing that we're doing.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So my question for you with that is, in doing pull, like how did you get over the same stereotypes and the same judgments that you projected onto people when you first got into it?
I had to force myself to face my judgmental side. Like I had to force myself to look at the judgments that I was putting on other people. So that was really hard because of the ego. So
Yes.
especially for gals who grew up in the 80s, there's a lot of messages that we've been given. Um, Dress a certain way, make sure you're not creating too much attention, all the slut shaming and all this stuff that we grew up with.
Mm-hmm.
So I had to really face about what I grew up with and why am I projecting this onto another human being. And that was a big turning point for myself,
Yes.
was making that change. And that's even like when I owned the studio, and even now, when someone would come in for the first time, I can tell, I can look at them and go, oh, I've been in that space before where you're
Mm-hmm.
judging because you're uncomfortable, you're uncertain. Um, So, and even now when I talk about that I teach pole, someone will either lean in and be like, oh, tell me more. Or they will be like, really, you teach pole? Interesting. So
Yes.
like I'm glad I faced that because it helps me understand things a lot more.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Mhm.
It's like learning something new. Like you have this new sense of empathy or compassion
Absolutely.
because you've been on that side.
Absolutely. And I faced a lot of judgment. I mean, I had a lady for 7 years, um, online, try and bully me online for what I do for a living.
Really?
Oh yeah, that's went along for 7 years. She's just very much against me and felt that I was the gateway to teaching women to that sexiness was not okay, and I was the gateway. So I've been introduced faced a lot of different opinions when it comes to pole. Nothing phases me now.
Nice. That's 7 years is a long time though. Like that's someone who's like on a mission. Like they are
7 years. It started 2014. She stood in front of the studio with a sign saying prostitution is here. I learned a lot about the
ooh,
Charter of Rights at that time because I mean, in Canada we can protest, and thank heavens we have those that ability to do so.
yes.
Um, but when you're on the other side of a protest, when you're being
Mm,
protested, you're
yes.
like, duh, Charter of Rights. But she she did a
Yes.
yes.
It's
So
just that it just sounded funny. Like I mean, like it's such a double-edged sword, but like yeah, yeah, yeah,
it's like when you're on the other side and you have someone protesting you, and
yes.
she did. She stood in front of the studio for a couple of days, and she chose the hottest days of the summer to protest our studio. And unfortunately for her, our studio was on the corner, and the sun would beam down on the studio from 11 o'clock to 5. And she ended up getting sun like heat exhaustion. So the,
We are laughing about someone's peril for protesting at this
I know it
moment.
sounds awful. I know it sounds awful.
Yes.
Um, I know it sounds awful.
Yes.
It's just when you are being protested
Yes.
and there's nothing you can do with it, and the police are telling you there's nothing you can do with it. All you can do is put it up to the universe.
Right. And the universe makes it 43 degrees in plus humidex.
Exactly.
Right.
But then from there, it went online. It went through Facebook. She would pop but two or three times a year. She would find Facebook groups and start the campaign. And at one point, you get to the point where you're like, what can you do? You just
Mhm.
This is somebody who's going through a lot going on with their lives. I know I'm not doing anything wrong. Then we just shift the attention. So
Jane, I always say hurt people hurt people,
that's just exactly it. That's
you
exactly
know?
what the underlying is. So
Yeah. Your handle, self-care and confidence expert.
yes.
Yes, I actually could just put the same thing, hurt people. Yes. Yes.
So
Yeah, so I was gonna
yes.
say, yeah, talk about that.
Well, I talk a lot. So yes, I talk a lot about pole, and I have actually two accounts. I have the Jane Wilson account, and then I have beginner pole dancing account. I recognize that because of my experience of having the anxiety disorder, losing my confidence and regaining my confidence, and also just having a lot of empathy towards reinvention and what it takes to reinvent. I've made that little segue over to helping more women rebuild their confidence and to put self care on the top of their list. Reprioritize, you know, re, thank you,
Prioritizing.
self
Yes.
care. And
Yes.
for me, it was pole. For somebody else,
Right.
it could be something totally different. And understanding
Right.
that you need to do this in order to feel better in your life, that it's not a luxury, that it's top of the list.
Absolutely. It's giving people permission from our place of authority
Mm-hmm.
as fitness professionals, right? Like, I mean,
Yep.
sometimes people need someone to just reinforce what they're thinking, but they don't have the courage to act on it yet.
For sure. For sure. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Over the pandemic, beginning of last year, in the beginning of the pandemic, after the first lockdown, I was asked to create a stretch and restore class for Women's Fitness Club of Canada. And they're like, we just want a class for people to stretch. And I was like, actually, what you need is a class for people to move, to get all of the anger and the tension and the frustration out of their body. I said, yes, you need a stretch and restore class for people to stretch, but actually what they truly need is an opportunity for someone to extend, stretch out their muscles, burst into tears, and let it all go.
Yes.
And that class ended up, and still is, one of the most popular classes at Women's Fitness Club of Canada in Burlington, because it's giving women an opportunity to let it all out.
Yeah, no, it's true. Absolutely. And I think about that too for my clients coming in, and for women who come in for Pilates, and you see that, yeah, they want to, get in shape, they want to lose weight, whatever, but there's this tug of war with all the things happening in their life where they're trying to say, I just need an hour for myself.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And we hold so much in our bodies. We're holding so much. So you need an opportunity to get it all out.
Yep.
So yes, we're working on strength, but really it's this emotional side that's being supported as well.
Right. Absolutely. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Or even like, close to saying, I live right beside the club. Awesome class idea.
Hey, amazing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. But don't you feel like sometimes it's just the fact that you've created a safe space is enough? The content doesn't even matter almost. Like it could be like, you could just sit here and just hide for an hour and then go back to life afterwards. Like this is just your little cocoon.
Then that's exactly it. And what's interesting is that in the class, it has a very special playlist that I curate. That's all acoustic covers, and every song is very specific. So it's a totally curated class. And we start with moving our hips from side to side. And it's like giving women permission to move their hips, especially now with the pandemic. We're doing a lot of sitting.
Yes.
So it's like the first thing we do is we're like, push one hip to the side, roll it back, push the other hip. And yes, there is a sexy element to it, but that's who I am, and I'm never going to remove that. So welcome to my class.
This is what you signed up for.
This is what you signed up for.
Yep. It's like when I do a yoga class and I walk in and I'm like, my name is Martin. I don't teach yoga. I teach Pilates. You can leave right now, but this is what we're doing today, right? Like...
And I actually started teaching the class. I went, hi, my name is Jane Wilson. I taught pole dancing and sensual fitness, and this class is going to have a little sensual side. Let's get in touch with our femininity. Here we go. And you can see a lot of ladies are like,
but yes, you don't even give the out option. They're just like, wait a minute. No, yeah. The roller coaster has started. The lap thing is locked in place, and we are moving forward.
You're mine for the next 45 minutes. And at the end of the class, they're like, that was a lot of fun. I'm like, yes.
But that's just it too. And we talk about that in the Pilates world all the time, where like you have someone moving through a class and then they hit this moment where they're like, this makes sense in my body, or this is what I needed. Like I personally chase after that moment with people when that new person comes in, and then halfway through it, they're like, yes, like you can see that this is where they needed to be.
Fascinating. Okay, I love that. I'm going to start chasing more of that moment with my class. A few years ago, my friend Esther took one of my intro teaser classes. It was her very first class. And I'm allowed to share the story. Esther totally gives me permission to share the story. And she's in the middle of the class, I would say about the first 25 minutes, and we're moving our hips from side to side. We're doing a little hair roll. And she did this hair roll, and all of a sudden she was like, my vagina is happy. She yells out loud, my vagina is happy. And what it is it's hitting that feminine side of you that needs to be awakened. Right. She's like, just said it out loud. Oh my God, my vagina is happy. It's creating those moments.
Yes. So you just have to chase after that moment.
Exactly.
Right. It's as simple as that. Yes. I'm going to read Joel's comment just to move on from that awkward second there. Keep going.
I'm all about awkward moments.
I know. I can lead into them too. It's so fun. It's good for people to feel uncomfortable, and then it ends up being fun. You see an inner person come out. Exactly. Totally. It's so funny.
We keep ourselves so contained, and we take care of our ego.
Right.
And so as soon as you let it go and just lean into the awkwardness, as what I threw out that comment with, it's like you lean into the awkwardness and it's like, okay, now we can talk about anything. Now we
Right,
can talk about
exactly.
anything.
Yeah,
Mhm.
I'm gonna do your class. I'm gonna yell that out just for kicks, just to see what happens.
My vagina. And you know what? Like, I love her for it because that's exactly why my classes were so popular. She
Yes,
recognized it right away. Some women are like, why do I feel so good with this? Why am I looking forward to coming back? Why is it that I
yes,
can't wait to get back? It's because it's hitting a side of you that we've been told to hide, that we've been taught at
yes,
a young age to keep that hidden, or else you're going to attract the wrong attention.
yes. Awaken.
Awakening, yes.
That's is the first word that comes to mind. It's like you're just awakening that side, something that we've been told to just kind of keep down.
Absolutely.
Love it. I love how my guys in the chat are just laughing at me right now. That's good.
I did that on purpose.
I could tell. That is awesome. So we were talking about that earlier, like the steps out of our comfort zone and the little
Mm-hmm.
steps out of our comfort zone.
Yes.
Um, yeah. So I've just been musing on that and what that really looks like, right? Like,
I think a lot of the times we think it has to be a big, massive leap,
right.
like a giant step out of the comfort zone.
Hmm.
But if it's just a tiny little dip a toe and then celebrate, dip a toe and celebrate.
Yes.
If you cheer yourself on along the way, then you become more comfortable with getting out of your comfort zone.
Yes.
So if you, a lot of times we're like, oh, you gotta step out of your comfort zone. And to you think, oh my God, that seems so scary.
Just
And
jump
such,
off this cliff.
yeah, where
Right.
it's like, no, just take a little left, just pivot a little bit and see how it feels. Celebrate it and then try again. Just break it down to something simple.
Nice.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Love it. So where are you teaching now then? So since you don't have your space, is it just all online or do you subcontract other spaces or what kind of stuff are you doing?
I'm in an interesting phase of my life. So I'm starting to land. I feel like for the last 2 years I've been falling. I feel like I'm starting to land. So selling the studio was the hardest decision I ever had to make.
Mm,
And not like the right decisions are not usually the easiest ones. And
yes.
it was the right decision, but it was the studio was doing great. It was on fire. It was doing so well, but I wasn't doing well. I was
Mm,
exhausted. I was
yeah.
angry. I was burnt
Losing
out.
your joy?
Just, oh yes. I lost, and when I'm looking back, I'm like, oh, of course, I can totally understand why. I lost both my parents in a very short period. And
Mm,
as we know, it's brick and mortar fitness businesses. You can never stop.
right.
You always have to be working on it. And I was great until I lost both of my parents and went into massive grief and couldn't get my way out of it. So I ended up being very angry and exhausted. I sold the studio because I loved the studio so much that I felt that it was better off with somebody else so that I can
Yes.
take care of myself. Because I was worried that if I continued being angry, then I'm going to kill the studio. I'm going to ruin the studio. So, and an opportunity came up, and the studio sold very fast. And then I was, now where am I going to be? So for the past 2 years, I've been trying to figure it out. I love to teach. I teach online,
Hmm.
and I've just moved to Waterdown and potentially we'll be opening up a little space in Waterdown. We're just kind of waiting for the world to settle the frick down.
Yes. I hear you. Yes. And as Joel's saying, that is a very brave move. I can imagine being like resentment sinking in when you can't just stop for 3 weeks to kind of get your bearings and figure things out. And you have to go back anyways. And that sense of being robbed of a moment.
It's well, and that's just the way it is with fitness businesses in the brick and mortar world.
Yes.
Because everybody is so busy with their lives, you have to constantly be enticing them for them to show up for class. Like
Yes.
it's like, hey, see you next Tuesday. See you next Tuesday for class. See you like come out. Make sure you come out Wednesday and all this stuff. So you're constantly
Mhm.
having to promote. You're also constantly having to get new people in, And when you yourself are going through stuff, and also like financially, the studio, it did okay for that business. I think it did
Yes.
great for that business, but brick and mortar fitness businesses are really hard
Yes.
financially.
Right. Right.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
it literally, I was looking at this business that everybody was happy in. All the students were happy. I wasn't. Let's let it go to somebody else who can foster and really love it. And so that it could be protected.
Amazing.
Yes.
It's like sending a child off to university, spinning and go.
And that was really hard. I don't think I recovered from that until a couple of months ago, where I
Mm,
finally went, that was the right decision. At first, I was like,
yes.
what have you done? Because now you don't know what you're doing with, you don't know who you are.
Well, that's the whole identity crisis of it, right? Because like you are that bricks and mortar, and no matter how much you scale it out, you're
Yeah,
like the top barber, and everyone's going to come to see that barber, regardless of how many people you have working there,
true enough. True enough.
right? So,
One of the
yes.
lessons I learned when I did own the studio is not to put, I had to learn this one the hard way. The more you make yourself the superstar, the more pressure it is, the more you highlight your team and show that they're the superstars, the easier it is for you. And
Yes.
I had to learn that one the hard way because ego, for many years, I was the superstar and it was very hard on me physically and emotionally. But the moment I pivoted and was like, you know, look at Megan, look how great she is. And look at this person, how great they are.
Yes.
Cheering other people on is a lot more fun.
Absolutely.
Hmm.
I'm all
Hmm.
about cheering people on.
Absolutely.
I hear you on that. But yeah, so that identity crisis piece is real. Like that is a real part of it. I think of my clients here who have been like who are just going through that retirement phase. One was a principal, and like you see how you really start to struggle with the fact of you didn't realize how much your identity was wrapped up into that
For sure.
space, or that job, or
Absolutely.
that role.
Yeah.
So yeah, so now you're landing on your feet, you have a greater sense of who you are, and you're ready to do a new thing.
Yes, and I mean, I love the poll. Poll is what I love the most. So I'm going to be launching literally an online poll program specifically for beginners, because
Mm-hmm.
that's also my love is I love when people are starting out, and I firmly believe that it's okay to stay in beginner land. That you don't always have to be
Thank
striving. Yeah,
you. Yes.
there's a lot, for some reason I notice, and I don't know if you see this in the Pilates world, but in the pole world, it's like you start at beginner and now you have to keep striving to elite. So you
Mm-hmm.
have to put your body through so much to get to hanging up at the top of the pole with your arm. And your body it really taxes your body. But
Right.
instead, if you just look at this as this is something I enjoy, this is something I love, and it's a part of my life, then it takes that pressure off of having to be the number one.
True, true.
Mm-hmm.
I hear that, and I hear it in two ways. Because for myself personally, I want to keep climbing that ladder. It's almost like swimming lessons. I want to make
Yeah,
it to like lifesavers. I don't want to stay in the Pilates crowd,
exactly.
right?
Yes.
However, I love introducing new people, specifically men, to Pilates. So there's a sense of I want to introduce you to this world where you can climb this ladder as high as you want, or you can stay wherever you want. But I want to just introduce you to it,
Beautiful.
right?
Beautiful. Because it also, like, you get to see it fresh from somebody's eyes.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I love teaching beginners. I mean, I love the intermediate and the advanced polars,
Mhm.
but I felt more joy teaching beginners,
Yes.
helping them along the way. It's like, here's the big buffet. Let's go have some fun.
Yes. Let's go make your vagina happy.
Welcome to my world.
Yes. Yes. Stay in beginner land. I love that. Like that is exactly it, right? And the more I find like that's it. I want to get more people into beginner land and
Absolutely.
into that space, right? But then I think that the sense of enjoying the journey, enjoying the process may mean that you're going to hang out in beginner land a bit longer than you thought, because you're now no longer chasing after the next stage and the next stage and the next stage. So
Absolutely.
yeah, that is good.
I started an Instagram account called Beginner Pole Dancing. I started it in February of this year, specifically because I wanted to just focus on beginner.
Yes.
And because I feel in the pole community, we highlight the Iron X. So the Iron X is where you're like hanging, you're going side on the pole.
Yes, right.
We highlight the crazy, hard to do stuff, and we make that the holy grail, so that.
Yeah, sorry, I'm just laughing because I like can't relate. That's exactly like the Pilates world. Exactly like the Pilates world.
Well,
go on.
And then on Instagram, you see a certain kind of pole performer, a certain body, certain gender, certain age, certain type. And yes. I'm like, well, forget this. I'm going to change this up. I'm just focusing on beginner. And it's going to be every person, anyone, any person that's going to be showcased and highlighted. And I look for specific things, moves that are easy to do, those win moves that are very easy to do, that someone can look at that and go, oh, I can do that. Versus seeing that really like that hard move and going, I can never do that. I want them to lean in and go, oh, I can do that. I can do that right now. So, and that account has blown up. So I started in February and it's blown up. And it's because it's also about just loving what we're doing. And it's not about showing off so other people feel bad. And I have to be honest, I've done the show off, so I know.
For sure.
I know.
It's coming from a place of empathy. I get it. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Yes. Yes. So JC Vitality saying, I love that you said it's okay to stay in beginner land. And then Club Pilates. I love teaching beginners in Pilates. It's fun when they realize what they can do. Yes.
Absolutely. It's that moment they're like, oh, I can do this. And I want more.
Yes. No doubt. Jane, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you so much for having me on. Honestly, this was fun.
It's super fun. And I would totally stretch this out for another 25 minutes if I didn't
have to get ready for this bat rate.
Yeah, I'm so excited about this too. So
thank you very much.
Yeah, definitely love to have you on again and just continue to unpack some of these things. Like, your book is amazing. Thank you so much for connecting my wife with this whole world of pole dancing, because it really was a game changer for that chapter of her life. You know, and
I love Alex.
Yeah. And,
thank you so very much for having me on. Thank you. My phone just told me that I only have 10% left. So you go teach a class. My phone's about to die. Thank you so very much for having me on, and always cheering you on.
Thank you so much. All right. And thank you everyone for joining us today as well. I'm going to log off now, but join us again tomorrow. We're going to have some more fun people all week. We have another just super amazing person like yourself. So Joseph DeRovo. Awesome. All right. Thanks again, Jane.
Thank you. Have a great class. Bye, everybody. Thank you so much.
Bye.
Bye.